That's what I like. Unless they bring it you were smart.
I'm in a whole different state. You're in the game. I'm just like 3 blocks away, like 2 blocks that way, 2 blocks that way.
Each other.
Well, that was somewhere because his company, the airport side of the door, those big, huge cruise.
Okay, we're going to start. So if everyone could please take a seat and please silence yourself. Christine, did you have anything to say? Yeah.
Hi everyone, good morning. Just real quick on the activities this afternoon. For those of you that are taking the lake cruise, the Tahoe Queen, there is going to be a courtesy shuttle available. It'll be there at 12:30 at the front of Harrah's, and so I wanted to give you a heads up because there's not a whole lot of time in between now, or in between the end of the meeting and by the time the shuttle gets there. For all the other activities, I don't know if you noticed at the entrance there was some signs, and just underneath them are some maps to each of the locations. Each of the places is, I think, less than a mile from here, so actually that's about it. If you have any questions, you can certainly come ask me. I think that's it.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Christine. Thank you. Okay, so the agenda this morning, we're going to hold a formal meeting. That should last about 30 minutes or less. Sorry about this. After that, we're going to go into the management presentations. Typically, in an annual meeting, it would all be part of the formal meeting, but this is more of an informal meeting. We're having the formal meeting really just as a rehearsal, if you will, for next year. It's really not required from us, but we wanted to act like a fully reporting public company as soon as we possibly could. So we're going to go ahead and have a formal meeting, and then we'll have the management presentations after that. Hopefully a lot of the questions that you have will be answered in the presentations, but we will have a shareholder Q&A session, so any questions that you have during the presentations, write them down, and then we'll have plenty of opportunity to talk about, to ask questions after the meeting, or excuse me, at the end part of the meeting. And if all the questions aren't answered, we have to get out of here at noon. There's certainly be plenty of opportunities to talk with us on the events and tonight, and we'll be around all weekend. So, okay, so with that, we're going to start the formal meeting. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am Ed Starrs, Chairman of the Board and Chief Executive of MyECheck, Inc. I hereby call the fiscal year 2014 annual meeting of stockholders of MyECheck, Inc. to order. On behalf of my fellow directors and officers, it is my pleasure to welcome you to MyECheck's first annual stockholders meeting. At this time, I would like to take the opportunity to present to you the directors and executive officers of the corporation who are present. On my left, Mr. Bill Delgado, Director of the corporation. On my right, over here, Mr. Steve Blandford, Director of the corporation, Secretary, and Chief Technology Officer. Down there, Mr. Bruce Smith, Treasurer and Chief Financial Officer. And Mr. Rod Zolinardo, Chief Operations Officer of MyECheck, Inc. Rod, as we mentioned last night, will be resigning from that position and will be accepting the position of President and Chief Executive Officer of GreenPay. Bill Delgado will act as Secretary of this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Board of Directors has adopted resolutions which provide that this meeting be held today.
At this meeting, shareholders will vote on 3 matters. The first is the election of the directors of the corporation. The second is regarding the future disposition of GreenPay. And the third relates to the formation of a new business entity. The voting today will be informal, non-binding voting for the purpose of gauging shareholder sentiment on the issues. Based upon the outcome of the voting, there may be formal binding voting in the future. For example, a spin-off of GreenPay would likely require a proxy statement and shareholder approval.
Each outstanding share of common stock is entitled to 1 vote on the matters presented at this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Delgado. I hereby appoint Christine Cowan to act as Inspector of Election of this meeting. The Inspector has executed an oath to carry out her duties impartially and to the best of her ability. The Inspector of Election will collect the ballots and count the votes.
Mr. Chairman, I have the oath signed by the Inspector. Mr. Chairman, I can report that a preliminary count indicates the presence at this meeting of at least a majority shares of common stock entitled to vote represented at this meeting either in person or by proxy, which comprises a quorum for purposes of this meeting.
Since the holders of record of a majority of the issued and outstanding shares of common stock of the corporation entitled to vote at this meeting are present in person or by proxy, I declare that a quorum is present. The first order of business is the election of the 3 directors. The persons receiving majority of the votes cast will be elected. Each director will hold that position until the annual meeting of stockholders for fiscal year 2015, and until his successor shall be duly elected and qualified. As to the results of the voting on the election of directors and all proposals for consideration, I intend to call for a vote on or adjournment of each of the matters proposed and then report to the entire meeting on the results of the voting on all such matters. Also note that the proposals to be considered and voted on are referred to according to the number assigned to such proposal. After the conclusion of the business portion of the meeting, I will give you a report on the status of MyECheck and entertain questions you may have regarding the business of the corporation.
Mr. Chairman, I hereby nominate the following 3 individuals for election as directors: Ed Stars, William Delgado, and Steve Blanford.
I second the nomination.
We have received nominations to elect 3 persons to serve as directors of the corporation. There have been no further nominations. I will entertain a motion that the nominations for the election of directors be closed.
I move that the nomination for election of directors be closed.
I second the nomination.
The next order of business is the consideration of Proposal 2, which, if adopted, would resolve the future disposition of MyECheck's wholly owned subsidiary GreenPay by approving either a spin-off of GreenPay and a forward 1-for-1 stock split subject to SEC approval, a sale to a potential acquirer for cash or cash in stock, or keep GreenPay and grow the company. Is there any discussion on this proposal? It's open now for any questions.
And a show of hands if anybody has any questions regarding that proposal.
I have
Yes.
a question. If we split off into another company, would the share structure be the same as it is for MyECheck for the spin-off? Because MyECheck is ginormous.
Yeah, it would. It would be a 1-for-1 forward split, so every share of MyECheck would get 1 share of GreenPay. So the company would essentially divide into 2 equal.
So we would have 2 ginormous companies.
Yeah.
Or ginormous outstanding shares.
Yes.
Is there any concerns about selling ourselves short if we sell a company off in the early stages of a development thing?
That is a concern. I think that's one of the reasons why the spin-off is a better idea than the sale of the company, because right now the industry is still very young. It's yet to fully mature. We have yet to establish much value in the company. It hasn't really realized its potential, if you will, at this stage. So by spinning it off, we're able to realize the potential in the future. The other benefit of the spin-off for for shareholders is, obviously it's a controversial industry, and if you're a MyECheck shareholder, you may have bought MyECheck when we didn't have anything to do with the marijuana industry. Now all of a sudden we're a marijuana stock. So this enables those people that like owning marijuana stocks to maintain ownership position, and those that don't can sell the stock and be rid of it. There's also some, there may be future concerns about just the association that we have with that industry. If we ever get courted by a potential acquirer, that may be distasteful to them to have that part of that business. So the spin-off kind of resolves that issue too, while still maintaining shareholder value. I also happen to think that when a typical forward split would not create additional shareholder value. I believe in this case, this is a unique situation that would. So I think that a lot of the value would maintain in MyECheck, and there would be additional value assigned to GreenPay. So I think that the shareholder value would increase as a result of the spin-off.
Can I ask you one more question?
Yes.
Is there a concern with the big banks and all that with us having a type of repayment like that? Is that why we're trying to maybe sell off because they don't want to deal with us because we are in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's been an issue. Like, for example, I'll give you a real example. We had a relationship with U.S. Bank, and they didn't like the fact that we were in that industry, so we no longer have a relationship with U.S. Bank. So it does impact our ability to...
Don't you think in a couple of years all those banks might turn the way they feel and...
Yeah, I think that may change.
Okay.
But any more questions? Because we have to move along here.
I'll try to move along. As far as, how does the shares go forward after that GreenPay after we split off, if we do go split off?
I'm glad you asked that question because I wanted to address your question. What happens is we do have a sizable number of shares in MyECheck. We would have the sizable numbers on the split off. We'd have the exact same number, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to keep the share structure the same. We would more than likely change the structure in GreenPay and leave it at MyECheck because the direction of the two companies are at that point in time would be at a different stage. So, yeah.
I move for the approval of the vote of future disposition of GreenPay.
Second the motion.
The next order of business is the consideration of Proposal 3, the formation of a new entity for the purpose of targeting sales to the legal U.S. online and remote gambling industry. Is there any discussion on this proposal? I'm going to start by saying, essentially, it's a GreenPay for gambling. We've had success with GreenPay, so the idea, we've had people present the proposal that we form a new company, such as GreenPay, be a wholly owned subsidiary. It has special products and special marketing capabilities for the online and remote gambling industry, which is burgeoning industry. It's similar to the kind of the marijuana industry, if you will, in that sense. So is there any discussion on that? Okay.
I move for a vote on the approval of the formation of a new entity for the purpose of targeting the legal U.S. online gaming industry.
I second the motion.
I now authorize the Inspector of Elections at this meeting to distribute a ballot to each shareholder present and who wishes to vote. Please vote on the proposals now.
So we're just going to distribute these ballots, and so we're going to take a few minutes. You guys can vote on the issues that we've just presented. We'll then collect the ballots. We'll then probably close the formal part of this meeting and move into the presentation parts. So, 5 minutes to vote. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but related to this GreenPay issue, was up here, I didn't introduce him. Okay, it looks like pretty much everyone's done. We're just finishing up, picking up the ballot, so I'm going to move on at this point, so we keep this thing moving forward. So there being no further business, I would now like to have the Inspector of Elections complete the Inspector's report, namely a current count of the shares voting stock represented here today in person and by proxy, and a tally of votes cast for each proposal. The results will be distributed at a later date. We'll put them online as soon as we can, and otherwise release them to you.
I move the meeting be adjourned.
I second the motion.
The meeting is now officially adjourned. Thank you all for participating. Okay, so that concludes the formal meeting. We get into the presentation part, which is more interesting. Okay, so okay, so we have several presentations to give here today, and I haven't really gone through these thoroughly yet, so I'm reading them for some of this for the first time myself, so bear with me a little bit on this. It's a pretty long presentation, but there's a lot of information in here. So what we want to do first is we want to talk about some of the things that we've done over the course of the last year. You know, a year ago, it was just me. And, you know, we think we've come a long way since then. So it really started kicking into gear earlier this year. And, you know, in February, we announced that we were going to buy back 1 billion shares of common stock. And I retired essentially 1 billion of my shares. That reduced the amount of issued and outstanding by 1 billion, obviously. We also, in February, announced that we launched version 3 of our Check 21 electronic payment system, which is a new version that we've been working on while we're sort of down, with new capabilities, really focused and designed for the future of payments, which is mobile. Later in February, we announced that we had licensed our software and patent to a company called GreenPay. We also took in quite a bit of revenue off that deal. In the next month, we engaged auditors who have subsequently audited our financial statements and have completed the audit. We added Bruce as our CFO, and he's a CPA, had a very successful practice in the Sacramento region. I've known Bruce for some time. He's done some work with me in the past, and we're very happy that Bruce decided to come aboard. We also signed we signed a deal with Itonis. They bought a license from us, and they're going to be targeting the medical marijuana industry in the Los Angeles region with a mobile payment app designed for the medical marijuana industry. On March 19th, we launched an application for government called GPay, and we recertified with the state of California and with BidSync. The certification in California is still ongoing. We haven't actually, just to clarify that, we haven't actually been formally approved here yet, but it's just a process. It'll happen, it's just a matter of time. We are registered back in BidSync, and we're receiving government contract bids daily now. So we have Bill, where's Bill? There's Bill McClure, he's our government sales guy. We have a dedicated government sales rep, handling government accounts. The sales cycle is longer, but the potential for government is massive, just massive. We have the only product in the world that can debit U.S. government accounts electronically, fully electronically. There's no other product that can do it. The only way governments can move money right now is they mail a check, paper, or they send a wire. Those are the only two options for government accounts other than our payment method, which is fully electronic. So we're really excited about the potential for government. It's just going to take some time to grow into. We also, in March, announced 3 new licensees, Sierra Global, Interpay, and Itonis. Talked about Itonis there before. We also, in April, we signed a deal with iCard1. It was a value-added partnership. They were going to be a back-end bank for us, for our mobile app. In addition to that, they were going to use our service for their products, with cash on the mobile wallets and cards. Unfortunately, as everyone knows, in July, right before we were about to launch our mobile apps, iCard1 lost their banking relationship. And that was the reason we didn't launch our apps in July. And so we were left scrambling for another partner. We've since developed multiple new partner relationships, which are actually considerably better. And we'll talk about a little bit about that later. We also signed a deal with VX Gateway around the same time. Kind of a similar situation. The VX Gateway was a company that was essentially based offshore and had bank relationships offshore, and we could have launched with them immediately if we wanted to participate in higher risk business, but we decided we didn't want to go that route. They ended up purchasing a bank in Iowa, and we are integrating with that bank right now and still working with them to get VX Gateway launched. VX Gateway has committed a large amount of transaction volume to us. So, you know, it's one of these things that, you know, we had hoped that they had been launched by now. They will launch. There's no question in our minds that they will. We believe that they do have significant volume, that we will generate significant revenue from that account. It's just taking longer than we want. Also in April, we announced additions to our senior management and our board of directors. That's when we added Bill to our board, and then we brought on Rod as Senior Vice President, Chief Operations Officer. In June, we got our stock DTC eligible, and that was not easy, as you guys probably remember.
It was not easy.
It wasn't. Nothing is easy. And then in July, we went ahead, since we were generating revenue, we went ahead and committed to offices. We held out as long as we could. We actually, you know, people didn't think we had offices, but we did. I mean, we were just spread out all over the place. We had developers working in Bill, had an old construction office. We had developers working out of there. Bruce was working out of his office, and Christine. I was working out of, I have a home office set up. Steve does too. So we were, you know, we're all working, but obviously it's a lot better to consolidate everybody into one location. So that's what we did when the time was right, and we negotiated a very favorable lease. We've since hired additional employees to fill several functions, and actually I'm going to introduce them right now. Let's see. So yeah, Christine Cowan is the executive assistant. And yeah, she's doing a great job, by the way.
She runs the show, by the way.
Yeah. And of course, Tony Rodriguez is our #1 sales guy. And then Bill McClure, he's our #1 sales guy. And then Allie works with banks. She's new. 3 weeks ago. And then Mike Bunt's our newest He's going to basically fill a lot of the functions that Rod is. He's in training now, but his role is in operations, and he's going to be the operations manager at MyECheck. Who did I miss?
Yeah, Brian back there.
Brian Phelps, our content writer. Brian has really brought aboard to document our system. We have a lot of technology that was developed very rapidly under circumstances where we didn't really have a lot of money to document everything properly. So we're documenting everything, so we have backups and everything, and the system to be properly documented. So if we ever do get courted and we decide as a company that we want to sell to an acquirer for $100 a share or whatever, everything's documented and we can prove that we have it. And then our brilliant software developers, Raul and Tahoe, where are they? And then, is that it?
Everybody in here is Eric, right?
Yeah, Eric, he's our web content guy, web manager, website guy. Helped a lot out in these presentations. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. All right, so anyway, moving on. Also in July, we announced a new agreement with Simplifile. They came back to us and said, we really want to grow our business with you. And we renegotiated a contract with them to enable them to roll out our system to their customers nationwide. And they're in the process of doing that right now. So we're going to be continuing with that. Also, please hold questions to the Q&A at this point. Thanks. Also, in August, we entered into a partnership agreement with GAC. It's a mutual. Look, I really like what I call value-added partnerships. I don't like to just go to a company and say, okay, we're going to use your service. I go to a company and say, we would like to use your service if you use our service. And so pretty much every partnership that we have, it's two-way. So, if you want to do business with us, you got to take our product. So GACT is a good example of that. GACT has some technology. It's a little overlap. We actually had some of that technology already, but they were giving us a better price. It's a value-added partnership, so they're actually reselling our services now as well. We sold license to GreenPay. GreenPay is a company that had a lot of money but limited experience and capability in the payments industry. And so they pretty much determined that they were incapable of doing what was necessary to roll out and execute on their license. So after negotiating with them, we determined it was determined mutually that it would be in both companies' benefits that we acquire GreenPay. So MyECheck did that. We bought the company, and I think it's the best money we've ever spent so far. I mean, I'm going to tell you a little bit about where that company's going, but it's going to be very successful, I think. We're really excited about what's happening there. We also announced in August that we signed an agreement with Monthly Filter Club. Now, just a little comment on some of these smaller accounts. I mean, we talked about having minimum sizes for accounts, and we typically do. We don't target small accounts, but we have a lot of smaller accounts come to us all the time. And we're working on a model to better handle that. In fact, we have a strategy for that to handle small accounts so we can sign them up in mass numbers. We're really not suited to or set up to handle small accounts. However, every time we put out a press release like this, we get a bunch of customers call us, and some of them are small, some of them are big. So we always end up getting business off of these press releases. So that's why we do it. And usually if it's in an industry where we haven't PR'd before, or we're PRing a product or a service that we haven't PR'd before. For example, with Monthly Filter Club, the unique feature there is it's automatic recurring payments. So we have the best solution for that. So that's we wanted to say that. So that's really what we're saying with this press release. Not that we're bragging that we signed a little account, but that we have the best service for automated recurring payments. So other companies that do massive amounts of automatic recurring payments will see that and call us. And that's what happens. It sort of snowballs. It's not one PR, but it's a combination of PR after PR after PR. The word starts getting out. Okay, September, so as you can see, we're starting to sign a little bit better deals now. As you put out PR, companies start to notice you and they start to call you and they go, hey, I read a press release that you guys can do this, we're looking for that. That's what happened with Psionic. They called us out of the blue and they said, we need your system. They were using Zipmark.
We'll discuss later.
So we signed them, and we have a really, really good partnership with them. It's also a mutual partnership. They have a lot of products that we're going to implement. Their rewards and loyalty programs are the best in the industry. And I believe that they will be the predominant mobile loyalty and rewards platform in the country. And we're already integrated with them. They've already signed 30,000 merchants. They have 30,000 merchant locations. So that's us. We're the ones that are doing those payments. They're just the loyalty piece. We're processing the money for those 30,000 merchants. That's a huge deal. They also just announced that they've partnered with some big gas company. They're going to be on the gas pumps now. So that's another. So as they grow, we grow. So that's an example of the type of partnerships that we're pursuing. Value-added partnerships. Here's somebody that we're integrating with their platform. They've got a unique platform that is going to be adopted in the industry, and then we're just riding along on their coattails, if you will. Part of their offering, the strength of their offering, is what we bring to it, though. So the combination is really powerful. We also signed, a nonprofit. That was sort of the purpose of this press release. The St. Augustine Schools nonprofit. Again, nonprofit donations, political donations. It's the fastest, safest way to move money. Think of it in this terms. Like political donations take in huge amounts of money, very large amounts. You can only donate so much on a credit card. You're limited to how much you can donate on a card to whatever the limit is on the card. And ACH has limits too. With a check, there are no limits. You can donate as much as you want, as little or as much as you want. Okay, so now GreenPay as its own entity is starting to go out and do its own deals. And it's already signed a license with a company that's a new company in Nevada, very well connected in Nevada. So we're going to be delivering a custom mobile payment app solution specifically targeted for the legal marijuana industry in Nevada. And that's sort of GreenPay's first direct licensee, if you will. We're also transferring the other licensees that MyECheck has into GreenPay, so that all the marijuana businesses in GreenPay, there's nothing in MyECheck. Qualix, another really good deal. Qualix is a Mexican company. They're a leader in software platforms and services for international secured prepaid cards, and primarily their target markets are underbanked and unbanked. So this gets us into a whole new market. This is just a foot in the door of something that we weren't really targeting initially. So they're going to be using us to load their wallet, and they also want to use us to capture physical checks like payroll checks, that kind of thing, for the unbanked. Photo capture those and deposit them into the Qualix account where they'll be used to store value, converted into electronic forms of payment. Qualix also has a mobile payments app that we actually may license as a back end. Not an app, but a back end that will enable our app to do cross-border money remittances and bill pay. So they have something like 10,000 bill pay clients and cross-border remittance capabilities in a mobile app. So we're talking about that too. That's the other side of the value add in that relationship. Okay, so just to sort of summarize our accomplishments in the last 12 months, as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, a year ago it was really just me working out of my house. Now, a year later, we have 6,600 square feet of Class A office space. We have 15 full-time MyECheck team members. We have server and network infrastructure upgrades to ensure scalability and enhance system security. We have multiple strategic partnerships. We have multiple sales successes. We have a public relations firm on board. By the way, the public relations firm that we hired is one that's not really targeted at the stock market. It's not a financial kind of a public relations firm. It's more of an industry, payments industry. So they were brought aboard to give us exposure in the payments industry. Try to get articles written about us in payments industry magazines and websites and that type of thing to get companies that are in the payment space to notice us. That's what that's about. It's not about promoting the stock price, unfortunately. So also, we're sitting here today, we have audited financials and a Form 10 ready to file with the SEC. So we're going to let you guys look at that today. Once the Form 10 is filed, we are essentially become a fully reported company. That enables us to get off the pink sheets. And start our progressive move upward to higher and higher exchanges. Our goal is to get to a much more senior exchange. We may have to step on a few other exchanges on our way up, but we're aiming for the highest possible exchange we can get to. If we make it that far, and I'm just saying this, we don't have any intentions right now, we don't have any potential acquirers courting us, but I just think it's just going to be a matter of time before we do, and we're going to have to make some decisions as to whether or not, if we get an offer, what we're going to do with it. We have very, very unique technology. People don't realize yet what we have, I don't think, in the industry. And when they do, and when we're a company, we're positioned, which we're almost there now. We're not quite there, but we're almost there. To be able to be acquired, then I think they will come. And so, that's why I'm not sure that we need to, do anything with the stock. People talk about, we have a lot of shares outstanding. We will either grow into that share price or we will be acquired before it makes any difference. Okay? And we're not going to get acquired for 10 or 20 cents a share. We're talking dollars here.
The other thing real quick is as I was just saying, when we move up here, after this is filed, which we anticipate will be this week, you will start seeing our next report, an actual 10Q, which will be on November 15th. November 14th, yeah. They have too many days in the months. Anyway, the other thing that's really important is that the significant press releases, anything relating to financial condition, that could be credit lines, equity purchases by outsiders, those things will all be now on 8Ks in addition to press releases. So there'll be some press releases announcing, customers and things, but all the major announcements will now be covered by 8Ks. So hopefully a lot of the naysayers out in the world will say, hey, well, if they're willing to say it to the SAC, it must be, it must give it a little bit, some more validation is what we're saying. So.
All right, so those are our accomplishments. We're proud of them. Okay, so next we're going to talk a little bit about the future and where we see things going. And that would be our vision. So our mission statement is to lead the electronic check industry in product, service, and technology. We've developed products really for 4 market segments. Individuals, and those are our person-to-person payment systems. Small businesses, we have web services, recurring payments, and a new point-of-sale mobile payment system that we're going to be launching. Enterprise and corporate, we do web services for corporations, we do recurring billing for corporations and billers. We do custom software development. We develop entire payment systems and payment platforms for corporations and enterprise. And we also have the fourth segment, which is government, which is, again, I mentioned earlier, we have a very, very unique product offering for government, something that's never been available to them before. And sort of the nice thing about the product is it just fits sort of tongue and groove with all what they're doing already. Their entire banking and payment system is based on the paper check. So they issue invoices and purchase orders and so on and so forth. They all carry forward check numbers. So what we're doing fits exactly into what they're currently doing. They don't have to change their entire infrastructure around a new payment method. They can still use checks, check numbers. It's just that they don't have to print paper and mail it. Everything is done fully electronically and automatically at a lower cost and much more efficiently. So we have, I think, segmented the universe into these 4 market segments and have the best products in the industry for these segments. So our strategy is, our product strategy really is to provide those products to those industries, to those market segments. So, the mobile wallet, for example, is probably going to be the leading payment method of the future. I mean, it's going to replace the retail bank. And what people do now with debit cards and paper checks at the point of sale is just going to be a transfer from a mobile device. And there's a lot of varying methods of doing that. Apple Pay just introduced one, Google has one, we have one, Sionic has one. It really doesn't matter to us what ones get adopted in the world of payments, because at the end of the day, all of those mobile wallets need to be funded. You need to put money into them. And nobody can do that faster, cheaper, more cost effectively, more securely than we can. We have a patent on that process. So that's why we have secured the future of this company, I believe, with respect to the mobile payments industry. We also, to enhance that, we have a downloadable point of sale. So, for example, Apple's product is dependent upon a specific hardware device that the user must have. You must have not only an Apple phone, but an Apple iPhone 6. It has to be a specific phone for the Apple Pay system to work. And there has to be complementary hardware at the point of sale. So now the user has to buy a special device, which costs about $1,200. And the merchant has to install new hardware onto their system. And what benefit do they get from that? It's still credit cards. So they're really not gaining anything new. It's not cheaper. They're not gaining any payment method. I think they totally missed the boat, personally. I mean, we're still pursuing Apple as a customer because we want to load that wallet, but I think it's a non-starter, personally. I think that they'll dump a lot of money into it and they'll get a lot of people to take it, but I don't think it'll ultimately be the solution that gets adopted. The solution that will get adopted is I believe, what we are doing and what Sionic Mobile is doing. And that's a fully downloadable solution that works on any device. So both the merchant system and the user system are software only. There's no hardware requirements. So you can just download it, register it, and use it on any device, anytime. You don't have to go out and buy new stuff. And in addition to that, there's no cards on our system. So merchants immediately are going to love that, because right now they're pretty much required to accept credit cards if they want, or debit cards if they want to accept payments. There's really no other way for them to accept money other than cash or paper checks. So this enables a merchant to reduce or eliminate risk and cost while improving their cash flow and adding a new payment method that works with more people. So there's no barriers to adoption. So we think that that downloadable merchant app is going to be very successful. We also do e-commerce payments, and we've done this for 7 years. So we have our web services integration where a merchant can integrate with our check engine and collect check data from customers and forward it to us. We then process that data and clear the funds to their bank account same day. That also works well for recurring payments, whereby the merchant will submit a batch of transactions to us each day that they want to process. And so, for example, you've signed up, probably all signed up to have your monthly electric bill or whatever automatically debited from your account. It's that type of thing where they would automatically run these transactions every day in batches. So we have the, obviously the lowest cost method of doing that, safest. We also do, as I mentioned, system development and licensing. That's been obviously quite successful, especially with these mobile apps. So we expect that line of the business to continue to grow pretty dramatically. We're getting almost daily now people calling us, wanting an app, a mobile payments app. So we're in that business, and that's all like just selling licenses is the whole revenue stream. The government payment platform, as I mentioned, that's just, that's one of a kind. That's exclusive to us. We're also working with the other providers in the industry, the other companies that provide payment services to government. So, not just direct government bids, but, for example, Official Payments is a big payment processor for the government. They've been getting in government business for 20 years or more. They have the bulk of the government business right now. So, if we can sell them, supply them, we're in government that way. So that's an example of another example of value-added partnership that I like, and we're pursuing that right now. We've actually been talking to them previously. We also offer the fraud control, and I'm adding compliance on that because in these regulated industries like the legal marijuana industry, there's some unique compliance requirements that are unique to specific industries. For example, gambling, you have to be able to prove age. You have to be able to prove somebody's over 21. So you have to be able to validate their identity and have a document that proves that they're of age. So the fraud control, we've always been on the leading edge of fraud control technologies. I've been writing patents around fraud control methods for quite a long time. And Steve and I have been involved in a lot of projects over the years developing really cutting-edge fraud control technologies. And what we do, and why our technology is so good, is it's not any one thing that we do. And it's not just piling everything on it either. It's selecting the right mix of rules, technologies, and blending them in a way that maximizes acceptance of the transaction, reduces the fraud, and eliminates the what you call what do you call those? Where you get transactions decline where they look like they're fraud but they're not. There's a lot of transactions that are declined due to over-aggressive fraud control technologies. So legitimate transactions are declined because they might look fraudulent. So our technologies are designed to go one step further and clear as many transactions as humanly possible while mitigating fraud. And we've had a phenomenal track record. I mean, by far the best in the industry for any payment method. I mean, we virtually have had no fraud. We've had customers that we've provided services to that they have been fraudulent. The merchants that we've provided services to. But as far as fraud on our system, it just really hasn't existed. And that's due to our our fraud control technologies and experience and what we've built there. Okay, so we've talked about mobile. I'm a believer that pretty much all payments are going to be originated off a mobile device in the future. Not just consumer payments, but business-to-business payments and all payments. If you look now at some of the, the shippers and the carriers, they all carry mobile devices and everything's scanned and barcode this and barcode that. All that can be, it's also has software at the back end that all interconnected, networked, and all that can trigger transactions. So it's just, there's no way that mobile is not the future of, there's no other possible scenario if you look at everything that's going on in the world. So, some of the benefits are, some of the things that we do as a provider to mobile is, we're building apps that are, we think, the best type of product for the industry, and we're white labeling these apps. So in other words, we talked a little bit about this, about companies coming to us looking for mobile payment systems. Well, we have the ability really to develop a mobile payment system and customize it and brand it for anybody. So let's say Best Buy, I'm just using them as an example, we don't have any relationship with them, but let's say they wanted their own Best Buy mobile app. They could come to us and we could build it with unique custom features just for them. We have all that technology and capability, and we can probably do it for a much lower cost and much faster, more efficiently than any other company. With the mobile, you obviously register and you load money onto the system. We're limiting it to 2 ways to load money. Obviously, we want to drive volume on the MyECheck system, so you can load from your checking account with MyECheck. But also, we want to capture the unbanked and give them, the ability to use our apps, and we can collect transaction fees when they spend the money and when they transfer money. So it also gives the so we offer cash loading as well. So the 2 ways that you'll be able to load our mobile apps, cash and check, electronic check. That will capture everybody in the country. There's nobody in the country that cannot load with either cash. If you don't have a check account, it's cash. So you don't need cards. There's no reason to have a card, a debit card. Once you have a wallet that you've loaded, you can then spend that money anywhere, and it's guaranteed money. So there's no risk to the merchant. And there's really very, very low transaction fees associated with that. And then you can add rewards and incentives for people to use it. So the merchants can incentivize people to use their mobile payment because they don't have to pay credit card fees. So they can give that money back to the consumer to get them to use it. And then the consumer can then earn rewards, and they get bonuses and benefits from using it as well. So both the merchants and the consumers benefit from a system like this. In addition, it provides a bank account and a spending vehicle mechanism for the unbanked and the underbanked. You don't have to have a bank account now. You can just have a mobile app. And you can just load it with cash. You can spend that cash. You can transfer it overseas. So that's the future of payments. And, it's also the future of banking. When you start thinking about this, and you start thinking about, well, what if I tied a low-interest line of credit to that wallet? And when somebody came in and they registered the wallet, they also applied for a line of credit. So now you have a credit vehicle as well. You can spend out of that wallet and draw down off a credit line at a reasonable interest rate, as opposed to gouging 21% or whatever the credit card companies decide to offer for. So anyway, we're really excited about mobile. We really like the products that we have. We think that both customers and merchants are going to like these products, and they will adopt them. The other thing about the mobile app that is unique to us is that we have the best funding mechanism in the world, which is the electronic check. We talked a little bit about, I think, most of you probably know that the Federal Reserve is currently writing a proposal, or it's not a proposal, they're actually amending Reg CC. Reg CC is the federal regulation that really defines payment methods, payment instruments. Over the past 2 or 3 years, they've been more than that, really. Working on a new payment method. They've called it various things, electronic payment orders, and various things. They finally concluded that they're going to create a new payment method called the electronic check. And it's not done yet, but they've gone out to the industry twice for comments on this issue. And on both occasions, the comments came back favorably. So the next course of action is expected in December. What I expect to happen in December is there to be a new payment method defined by the federal government called electronic check, and another payment method called electronic return check, return electronic check. One's for the forward process, and one's the return process. So once this happens now, and in addition to defining that item, essentially they're saying that an electronic check is equivalent to a paper check. And that was sort of the big issue. Nobody knew what rules applied to electronic checks. It's a brand new invention. It's not mainstream in the banking system. When a bank receives one of these items, it was created electronically. There's no paper trail. They didn't know necessarily what the rules were, who's responsible to check balances, what are the warranties. So the Federal Reserve, one of their big roles is to warranty items and to make determinations as to who's liable on the item. And there were, with ACH, for example, it's completely different than it is for checks. It's a much riskier environment for merchants to be in an ACH environment. So the fact that the Federal Reserve determined that an electronic check is the same as a paper check is huge good news for us. Huge. It means that we're not subject to all the electronic commerce rules that Reg E, for example, that ACH is. So it's not lumping us in with ACH. It's giving us our own unique payment method. So now, going forward, after that happens, banks can, there's no gray area here. The liabilities are set in stone. There's a framework of regulation around the electronic checks that never existed before. Now banks can adopt it, or whereby they've been reluctant to in the past. So this changes everything. This changes the world dramatically. Now enables electronic checks. The other thing about the law is that you don't even have to have a check in it. Like right now, we're actually creating a check image as part of the item, having the data. You don't even have to have the image. It's just data. So that's even better. So that's just files are smaller, they can move faster. So what's happening on the Federal Reserve side regarding electronic checks is really exciting for us. Nobody knows about this. You guys know about it because you're in MyECheck shareholders, but this is what we've hired William Mills to do, is to get the word out about this, because nobody knows about this yet. So when the word gets out, things are going to change pretty dramatically for us. So that's what we've been setting up for. The electronic check is based on 21st century banking infrastructure. All other payment systems in this country are all based on 1970s banking infrastructure. Credit cards, that infrastructure was built in the 70s. ACH, that was built in the 70s. And all these systems are really archaic and they're really bad. And they're really almost embarrassing compared to what other countries have. And they've been stymied, if you will, or held back. Progress has been held. I've been held back. MyECheck has been held back. We've had this technology for almost 10 years. And we've had a rough time with it. So, but things are changing, and this new rule will essentially change a lot, very dramatically. Electronic checks are faster, safer, and less expensive than the other payment method. You can tie more data to a transaction, you can collect payment from more payers, and the rules are much better. So there's no reason now for the United States not to lead the world in electronic payment methods rather than lag the world. We're in the last place right now. Every other country has a real-time or same-day payment system except for us. We have it. Here it is. It's a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. It's about Honestly, if you count wire transfers alone are over $100 trillion in this country. Checks, 31 trillion. ACH, 36 trillion. ACH that are converted, that start out as paper checks are converted to ACH, 9 trillion. We're the first to market in this industry with a patented solution. So our payment method will work, especially our app, the mobile plus electronic check, works anywhere, anyone, anytime. All you need is ID, money, and a mobile phone. Let's use our system, and you can enable real-time payments. This will give you freedom from interest for the user, freedom from having to carry plastic cards around, freedom from late fees and other types of fees and fines, freedom from paper, give you freedom to pay anyone, anywhere, anytime. So that's freedom. And our new product is going to be called Freedom Pay. It's the fastest, safest, most secure way to request or send money to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Coming January 2015. So once we've sort of uncovered what we believe we need to know in order to sell them, then we'll start a presentation and we'll have a PowerPoint that is a guide, but we will typically customize it in the way we present it to speak to their needs, their unique needs. So start out by telling who we are. MyECheck is the pioneer of fully electronic check. We are the leader in electronic check technology. We offer the fastest, safest, and most cost-effective payment method in America. That's a pretty powerful statement. Why would you want to use electronic checks? Well, an estimated 18.3 billion checks were paid in 2012, the value of $26 trillion. And while paper checks have declined, electronic checks have increased by 13%. And e-checks are available to more consumers and businesses than any other electronic payment method. So, what we offer is a variety of services around electronic checks. I'm not going to do this slide, so there could be some slack on this one. So obviously we have mobile payments. We offer e-commerce, web payments. We do custom development. We have business-to-business transactions and government payments. We have leading-edge technology, including check authorization, check guarantee. And I would probably expand on all of these, but just to keep this kind of thing moving along. One of the main benefits is that our system, over ACH, is that it works with all banks and all accounts, and ACH doesn't. So often we're being compared with ACH, and so we sell to the benefits of Check 21 electronic checks versus ACH. And so we'll talk about the fact that it works with more banks, it clears faster, the rules are a lot less, more friendly, less likely to be reversed. Okay, so the services that we offer for web services are fully electronic check service, and that's our standard service without any check authorizations. We offer that service with check authorization for an additional fee. The check authorization validates the user's identity and their bank account. It also checks their check bouncing history, if you will, if they have any outstanding bounce checks. With respect to the checking account verifications, it verifies that the account's open, it's in good standing, doesn't have any overdrafts, it's not, it currently has a positive balance, doesn't have any stop payments on it. So if everything looks good and there's no reason to decline the transaction, the system will approve the transaction. We also offer a guarantee service. Most people don't take it because, honestly, it's a little cost prohibitive. It's not that it's expensive, but we just don't have a lot of fraud. So there's not a lot of risk. The fraud can be managed with this check authorization and rules. An example of rules is if you operate a mobile wallet and somebody deposits the money in today, you don't give them availability on the money until tomorrow. And that way, if the check bounced, you'll know before you give them credit. That's an example of a rule. So you can incorporate a lot of rules and a lot of technology and then totally secure the transaction to a negligible amount of fraud. When I say negligible amount, there's always fraud with transactions, and if the cost of fraud is less than the cost of the fraud control tools, then you have a negligible amount of fraud. All right. So some of the features that we offer is it's the fastest transaction clearing of any type, any payment method. The electronic check rules eliminate chargebacks. You can't, after the transaction, the customer can't call their bank and reverse this. They can with an ACH or a credit card. So a merchant will often lose their money after the sale. Again, it works with 100% of accounts. ACH is participation only. So banks have to voluntarily participate in ACH. Otherwise, an ACH won't work on their account. A lot of accounts are ineligible for ACH. For example, brokerage accounts are ineligible, or government accounts are ineligible. A lot of corporate accounts are turned off for ACH capability, so you can't debit those accounts with an ACH transaction. So our system is the only system that will work with all checking accounts without exception. It also offers the highest level of security. The product in and of itself is more secure, but also with our fraud control technologies, it's the most secure payment method. It's also the lowest cost. I mean, our fees per transaction are very, very low, but even if our fees were really high, it would still be lower cost because we clear more transactions and have fewer failed transactions. So people clear more money using our system. Benefits, it increases sales, increases loyalty. The loyalty part is like a lot of people don't have cards or credit cards, but they do have checks, so they prefer to pay by check. And not everybody takes checks. So if a company takes checks and the customer is a check user, they'll be more loyal to that merchant. It lowers abandonment. If somebody adds checks and they're, for example, just take credit cards on their website, if they're declined on their card, that's it. They're done. The transaction's over. But if they also have checks, they get declined on their card, maybe they get approved for a check, and they get processed on a check. So it clear more transactions. Again, the costs are lower compared to any transaction system, any other payment method. We're always lower cost, always. And all the above, of course, increases profitability. Is there a link in here for that? Yeah. Okay, so the way I went through this presentation is really not the way I would normally do it with a customer, but it's close. We have a mock merchant site. It's a demo site, and this site basically illustrates a web services transaction on our system. It sells anvils online. So I'm going to buy 15 anvils. So I'm going to load my shopping cart and click to check out. And so the shopping cart will total my order of 15 anvils and give me various payment options. So I'm going to choose MyECheck. I'm going to pay by MyECheck.
I want to barter with the chickens.
So what you're presented with here is in this case, is a blank check, but the merchant is free to present any form they want. It doesn't have to look like a check, but a check is good because people are familiar with it. It's not anything new that they have to figure out how to do. So the amount of information that we collect is consistent with what they would provide in a credit card or an ACH transaction. So it's not any more difficult or cumbersome to fill out this form than if they were filling out an ACH or a credit card form. This is not right. Okay, so the customer fills out basically their name and address, their bank name, bank routing number. Now, we have a utility running in the background of this website that makes it so you have to enter a valid routing number. If you don't enter a valid routing number, it won't let you move forward. That looks like a routing number, but it's not valid. That last digit is supposed to be 7. That's a valid routing number. So that's a mathematical formula. It just kind of calculates if it fits the criteria of a routing number. Oops. The account numbers we don't validate online, on the website. That data has to come to us first, and then we go out and validate the identity and the bank account information. So a consumer would fill that out. Again, it takes about the same amount of time to fill out a credit card form. They would agree to the terms and conditions of the merchant, not us, because we're not a part of this transaction. This is a transaction between a consumer and a merchant. They authorize the check. They give it an opportunity to review one last time, and maybe go back and make an edit. We'll continue again. Everything looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and process it. That actually hit our live server, or a live demo server, and return a response. So that's the amount of time it actually takes to return a real transaction. So our test server sent back various responses. These are just example responses. This one had an error in the phone field, so that would, in the case of that transaction, data would go back to the merchant system, notifying them that there was an error in the fields. The merchant system might then represent that field to the consumer to recollect that information and resubmit the transaction. Otherwise, it will be either approved or declined if they're using the check authorization. If they're not using the check authorization, it'll just automatically process. And the customer might get a response like this from the merchant. Now, one of the benefits of our solution versus an ACH is that the customer actually gets a check in their bank statement. And you don't in an ACH. You get a line item which maybe has 12 characters describing the transaction. So customers often don't recognize the transaction, will call their bank and say, I didn't authorize that, and the bank has to reverse it by law. So first of all, there's no law that pertains to that in our case. Second of all, there's so much information on the check that customers always know what the transaction is for. And the customer can put a variety of additional information on the face of the check, or excuse me, the merchant can. So for example, down in this memo field, they could put a whole host of information like security information, authorization codes, IP address, what the customer purchased, their customer support number. If you have any troubles, call this number. So they're not calling the bank trying to reverse it. It's here's what you bought, here's what you paid for, here's our proof that you authorized it. Call us if you have any problems. That's what it should be. It should be between the consumer and the merchant. Consumers shouldn't be able to call their bank and go, I don't remember that. You better just reverse it. That's not fair to the merchant. This is a much fairer system. So merchants prefer this. And merchants are the ones that drive adoption of payment systems. For example, if I'm a merchant and I sell glasses or whatever, I can determine what kind of payment methods I take. I can take credit cards or I can take electronic checks. I don't have to take cards. So most of our merchants will have both, but in any event, they will always clear more transactions faster, more safely, and keep more of their money for a lower cost when they use MyECheck. So that's essentially the demo that we give to the customers. see the demo and the demonstration, want the product, and then it just becomes a matter of can they implement it. A lot of times customers will sign up, merchants will sign up, and it's just, they have to coordinate with their IT departments and so on and so forth to get integrated, and that takes time, or never happens sometimes. So not everybody that we sign up actually ends up going live, as you probably will know. All right, so what's next on the agenda? Q&A. Okay, so I think at this point we've got two things left on the agenda. We have an optional MyECheck demo with Eric. We have an MyECheck app demo. So anybody that wants to do that with Eric and I, we'll do that essentially after the meeting. And right now we'll spend the rest of the meeting here in a Q&A session, fielding and taking any questions that you may have. So
Let's open the floor by show of hands.
go ahead.
I'd like to address the simple file thing from months ago.
Sure.
You guys put the PR out, and then there was some stumbling and some backpedaling about the way it was worded. Was it because of an ACH issue, or was simple file doesn't want?
Yeah, they didn't want that's the big issue with press releases, is they don't want their current vendors to know that they've done it.
So the second part of the question is, they're not necessarily dumping them, we're just maybe getting their new customers, right? They can still, ACH can still have the money they were making.
Yeah, but here's the thing is that they have a relationship with their current supplier, and they're transitioning from that relationship to us. So even though it's, may only be a portion of the transactions over time, it's still a transition business. So that's typically the issue that we have. Now, just to speak to PRs on that issue, in every one of our contracts, we have never signed a contract once that does not have an authorization for us to issue a press release. Every single contract that a customer signs authorizes us to issue a press release that describes the nature of the relationship. So every one of our press releases is authorized. Now, that said, not everybody reads the contracts they sign. So we have to make it a special point. Sometimes we're dealing with somebody in the company and they approve the press release, but their PR department isn't notified, or their CEO isn't notified, and they get pissed off. My policy is that we're a public company. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our shareholders to share information that's pertinent and material in a timely fashion. So if we sign a deal, we're going to put out a press release, unless they ask us not to, specifically ask us not to. A lot of times they do, or they'll ask us to hold off. We're in that situation with a few right now where we're holding off because they've asked us to, or we'll just won't put out a press release. So
In the future, we'd have to put an 8K out though, right? Without a press release. I mean, there'll still be
anything
disclosed for us, but
right?
it might not necessarily go to the public, right?
well, we'll go to the public if it goes in DK.
No, I mean like PR,
Yeah.
like
Well,
Newswire.
The I'll give you an example. Simple file would not be an 8K at this stage of the game.
No, I mean in the future.
If it was, well, no, even in the future, it doesn't meet the material requirement under the 8K. If we signed a deal with Facebook or Apple or
Microsoft,
Best Buy or any of those folks, those would be material agreements. When we sign, they'll be material. So that's the threshold of an 8K, is a material event that's going to affect financials or projections of financials of the company. Simple file is not large enough to make a determination of our earnings yet. I don't yet. So I just want to clarify what an 8K is going to be. That would never have been 8K.
Gotcha.
Yet.
No, but I gotcha. I understand.
who else?
I got one. You mentioned
Steve.
Smallex. You said that they might have implement an option to do mobile image check capture.
Yes.
Does that fall underneath the patent, or?
Well, that's a really good question, and I'm not well versed enough in patent law to be able to answer that. I think that would have to be determined in court, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not the intent of the patent, to be perfectly honest with you. The intent of the patent is to just have data input through a graphical user interface. Now, I agree, it could be under the patent, in which case every bank is infringing. So that's interesting, but I don't want to go there because that's just like too much for us to bite off right now. So we have to like take little nibbles first and then bigger chunks as we go. Yeah.
I got one more question on that.
Sure.
So you were saying you can load cash if you don't have a bank account.
Yes.
So how would you load the cash without a bank account? We
Cash
cash
load stations like your VDOT, for example, GreenPay, you can load cash right at the dispensary. You can take cash into the dispensary and you can have it put onto your MyECheck app account. In addition to that, the MyECheck apps will have cash loading stations at MoneyGram, Green Dot, 7-Elevens, Walmart, everywhere.
Gotcha.
Tens of thousands of locations to load cash.
More than likely, the whole ATM network will be in accepting cash.
Ultimately,
At the
you'll be able to put cash in it everywhere.
Gotcha.
Eric?
How long does the typical integration period take?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, there is no typical integration. I would say 2 weeks is what it should take for somebody that does it right away, doesn't rush it, does it right, reads the documents, has a tech call with Steve. 2 to 3 weeks is probably the standard integration time for like a web services integration. Obviously, the mobile app is a completely different thing. That's kind of the future. So that is just a download and registration thing. That's real time adoption.
One more question. I noticed on the website when you had career opportunities in there, you had a statement in there at one time that said, you could be a part of the sales team from your own hometown type of thing. And
Yes.
what was that all about?
Well, we now have a reseller program, if you will, where we are contracting with independent sales agents. Prior, we were just hiring employees, and we've just now implemented as of last week, if you will, a new program. We planned to do it, but it never got implemented previously, so it just now got implemented.
And how do you find out more information about
Talk to me.
Okay.
You have my number. Everybody has my number, right? Everyone got my card? Oh, should I give it to one way? Yeah. Actually, let's give those out now. Why don't you guys give out the bags? Shannon?
They get different sizes of things, I'm sure.
We have gift bags for everybody. The plan was we were leaving for the day or ending it, come and see us. We have various sizes.
Just t-shirts in the bag, so they're mostly large or extra large. There's a few mediums and a few double XLs.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So Ed, we'll make sure Ed's card's available. Obviously, everybody
My
needs
card's in everybody's bag.
You don't see CEOs put their cards in people's
That's
bags.
my cell phone number on that.
So, I have a quick question. I work in the healthcare industry, so that's a huge market from the sense of hospitals cutting POs for supplies, but also from a patient perspective when they have to pay their bills.
Right.
A lot of them pay for credit card or don't
Yeah.
pay. So is that a target?
That's a huge target, and we are unfortunately not well versed in that industry and not well resourced, if you will, to go after that industry. So that would be something definitely in our plan going forward to look to get into. And I mean, I think that whole industry, the whole medical industry, even Obamacare, and the government website.
Well, the percentages the hospitals could save just from transactions, since they're getting
Yeah.
fined by the government for readmissions, it's huge
Right.
dollars.
Any payment system that is credit card based is a ripoff for both the consumer and the merchant. There is no scenario where that's a good deal, in my opinion. And in every one of those cases, we can replace that and provide a much lower cost, safer, faster payment method.
Let me answer probably what would happen in that industry and what's going to happen in a lot of these different industries that we obviously are not experts in. And a partner will approach us and say, hey, we are a healthcare expert and we would like to use your services. And that's where our adoption will be done through a third-party partnership, joint venture, that type of
That's
situation.
pretty much our growth strategies,
Right.
partners, value-added partners, where they take our service and they're bringing something to us as well. And that, that's, as Bill said, how we'll get in that space. Down there?
Yeah, this is a lighter question. What does it mean when the company's webpage is down? Because as soon as it goes down, there's 100 emails going out all across the nation. Is it a conspiracy? What's going on?
The website up and down often. I'll get into the technicalities of it with you. It has to do with web caching, and when there's a change made to the site, some of the servers take a few minutes to catch up to that. And so you'll go there and you'll see a page you don't expect. Typically, if you just hit a refresh, either immediately or in 5 minutes, you'll have your page back. And that's something that we're working on. We've been making so many changes, and there's so much new content going in almost daily. That's kind of been an issue, and I think once we get a little more static and through some of the server upgrades we have coming, we're going to see a little bit more rock solid.
Good, because usually someone says, oh, the app's going out tomorrow because it's down tonight, so that's good.
Generally speaking, it's related to system upgrades. We're upgrading our systems, making them more stable for our growth.
And that includes adding servers too. That's the part of the process, and server upgrades. Things are going so fast right now that literally, we could order a server and we need it today, and we won't get it for another week. That's just an example. So.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Oh, Ken Mark.
Yeah, back to the loading of money at this, whether it be like Ring Dot, whatever, and as MyECheck evolves into that, is, as you know, there's fees involved on both ends of that. Like somebody goes to load money, and a lot of this with Young Bank or the underbanked. I mean, it's a huge burden on them. Like if they're paying $1.50 to get into it, and $4 to take money out, they go into something to get $40 or put $40 on. It's costing them $3 or $4 or $5 to do this. As an extra value-added thing, is MyECheck, will that be also one of their priorities, where it's a cheaper expense to them?
Yeah,
more control
the fees that we control will always be very, very low.
Okay.
Always. It'll be our highest fee that we will ever charge anybody, merchant or consumer, is 25 cents, period. We'll never charge anybody anything more than that, unless it's a unique situation for a custom application. And then other factors come into play because you have other technologies involved that have costs. So if it's our standard product, we're at 25 cents max. Now, that said, other companies charge their own fees for their services. So our job is to find and partner with those companies at the lowest fees. And we'll continue to do that. The other thing is that industry is growing, and like that's going to replace, in my opinion, a lot of the retail banking that we see today. Okay, so that's where it's going. So the costs on all that stuff are going to go down, because it's not even going to be used by underbanked and unbanked. The new generation, kids that are growing up, prefer that type of methodology for their money, the way they spend and use their money, rather than the traditional retail banking, brick and mortar scenario that we all grew up with. So that's all going to change. Those costs will come down dramatically.
So if you, it sounds like you envision actually having MyECheck as like I take all my money and put it in MyECheck, whatever wallet
That
that.
sounds good to me.
It's a possibility and probability. Would it be insured through?
Yeah, and let me kind of explain. The way our mobile backends work, or these wallets work, is typically what you have is one bank account, one master bank account that is covered by FDIC insurance, and you have sub-accounts within that account. So your money's actually in a bank. It's just not controlled by the bank in the sense that you don't have a unique relationship with that bank. You're aggregated with other users into one account. So it is insured, but it's not FDIC insured. Typically they have third-party insurers, or they have things like reserve accounts that the bank requires. So if let's say for example, they have a $10 million wallet, they might be required to have $3 or $4 million in a reserve account, and then have insurance with Lloyd's to cover the balance or something.
Rob brought up a good point. It's kind of like an escrow account, but it's your money.
Well, I want to sign up as soon as that is.
We have sign-up forms at the door. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken? Go ahead, Ken.
Oh, did you have a question?
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I got the mic.
Well, since I've got it on.
Yeah.
So I have one more.
I didn't notice either.
What's your relationship currently with Bank of America?
We have no direct contractual relationship with Bank of America, nor do we have a direct contractual relationship with any bank. What we do is we deposit items into banks on behalf of our customers, into their accounts. So our customers have accounts at Bank of America, and we have a technical integration with Bank of America, which means that it's really not an integration in the traditional sense. What it means is that we have the ability to create files that are formatted in a way that Bank of America's system can accept them. And we have authorization to deposit them in that person's account. So each time we have a new merchant with an account at Bank of America, we essentially have to establish a new connection with them for that specific merchant. And we do what's called image cash loader deposits. So we create batches, if you will, format them in a Check 21 file format, send them directly to Bank of America. They get credited instantly to the users for the merchant's bank account. And then they're pre-formatted in Bank of America's file format, so they automatically clear without having to go through another process, if you will. They just automatically flow through and clear through the clearing system, and the funds become available by midnight in that account. So that's our relationship with all banks. So any relationship that we have with a bank will not be a direct contractual relationship. It'll just be a technical relationship whereby they're allowing us to deposit checks into their customers' accounts, our mutual customers' accounts, using our technology.
So does MyECheck have a generic front-end system, online front-end system, where I could, say, go into MyECheck's online system and enter in a request?
No, we don't operate our own system. We only provide services to other companies.
So the other company would have to develop that?
Yeah, and you know, we are dancing around very carefully the whole money transfer and banking regulations. So we don't want to get in a situation where we're regulated in any way, shape, or form. And we do that by not handling money. We just handle data. As soon as you touch money and handle money, you're regulated by the government. We don't want that. So we have partners that handle money for us. And that's part of some of these delays. It's like if we wanted to have our own back-end, banking back-end, and be our own cash management system, we could get money transfer licenses and do that. But we don't want to because that exposes us to risk. And that's not our business model. We're a data processor, a technology company, and services provider. So we're not a money transmitter or a money processor. We're a data processor. So there's a difference, and we do it strategically to stay out of the regulatory environment.
We got about 5 minutes, and Ken, you got it. Thank you for the question. That's a very good question.
I have a question that follows up on that. Ed, you were talking about U.S. Bank who left us because of green pay.
Yeah.
Did they give us an ultimatum? And then my second question would be, were there other banks that have come to the board and expressed concerns about that business.
The marijuana business? Just the only one that we've had any experience with is Bank of America. And it's ironic because GreenPay has an account at Bank of America, but MyECheck doesn't. MyECheck, GreenPay got approved for an account, MyECheck didn't. But just for an account there. And basically they did due diligence on MyECheck. They saw the press release that went out about GreenPay, and they said, oh, marijuana and all that.
Yes, but they don't really, did they say that specifically? U.S. Bank, yes. So they did. They did say that specifically, the marijuana.
That was the only bank we've had any experience with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't Bank of America, it was U.S. Bank.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we've got Ken over here real quick.
Cynthia?
One other question, as you were stating that Apple, you know, it's all, you have to have an iPhone 6. And you have, with MyEPay, is it going to be more generic over any phone, any device?
Yeah, any Android or Apple device.
What about with the resurgence of BlackBerry? What about the new BlackBerry system that's come out? Will it be functional with that?
Raul?
Yeah, possibly yes.
Brilliant answer.
I don't know if BlackBerry's going to be around.
BlackBerry also uses the Java environment, so Android is also using the Java environment. So our app currently is on the Android platform, it's all Java. So most likely, with a little bit of coding and using frameworks, like a PhoneGap or Cordova, we will be able to run that.
One more question for me. You have a lot of people in the room going to watch this video. So what's the company's official stance of, if we go to our recurring payment companies like AAA for insurance, Dish Network, do you want us doing that, or do you want us not to push back on this?
I would like you to get a contact, name, number, and give it to Tony or Bill.
Okay.
That would be the best way to proceed at
That
this
way?
point. Yeah, Bill and Flora. That's the best way now. If anyone that's interested in becoming an independent sales rep for MyECheck, you can apply and send in your resume and specifically say you're looking for that position. What we will do if we agree that it's a good fit, you'll get an independent contractors agreement, and then you'll schedule demos for us to provide. We'll get on a conference call and give a demo, kind of like this, for the first few presentations, and we'll follow up and close the deals along with you. Like we'll do it together for the first few contracts, and then we'll kind of wean you off on your own after that. But we want to make sure that the only reason why we haven't jumped into this before is we want to control the message and control the information that's getting out there. So we have only accurate information. Everybody's getting the same information. It's consistent, it's accurate. There's no need for misinformation. It's really important that our customers fully understand what we do. And we don't sign anybody up that doesn't go through a demo anymore. You have to go through a demo before you sign up for our services, because a lot of times they'll sign up and then they won't, 3 weeks later it's like, okay, so how does this ACH thing work? Yeah. All right, I want to, any more questions?
Oh, just one more. And
Sure,
this is
go ahead.
a question that everybody is going to want to know the answer to.
Yeah, we'll get you on one more.
Okay. You say that there are some clients who don't want you to divulge that they're in a relationship with us. Could you give us a number of, not a name, but a number of how many clients you've got right now that you can't tell us about? You did want to know that, didn't you?
Not many.
Not many?
Just a few. It's not, and nobody that is of any material, huge material value. There's some good deals there. There's some good revenue deals, but it's not. We don't have to deal with Apple, right?
Of course. Yeah.
I wish we did, and like I said, they're on our target list.
Yeah.
By the way, we have targets. So we have top 5 tech targets, top 5 bank targets, top 5 mobile wallet targets. So we're targeting the biggest industry players, going after them, and we're also going after them at different levels. So we're going after senior management, we're going after the tech side, we're going after the product development side. We're also going after them from the PR side. So we're just in their face, we're getting in everybody's face as much as we can now. It's been a little early for us because we pretty much had to get past this before we're really viable enough to do business with these big companies. But after this, and really the Form 10 and the things that come after that, we're really much better positioned to go after these larger accounts and have success, to be perfectly honest with you.
Last question. Unfortunately.
Well, go ahead.
I just want to know if you, maybe I missed it, when Green Pay is going to go live.
Well, the MyECheck app system may go live in November, okay? It's scheduled for January. So if it goes in November, it'll be early, November, December. There's also a chance that we may launch another app on the Freedom Pay that has limited capabilities prior to January. So there may be some surprises. I'm not saying anything officially at this point, but you know, we're trying. It's the kind of thing that, you know, if we can get there, we'll get there. You know, if not, it'll be January. But January was a very, very conservative. I didn't want to have another miss date. I'm going to say one more thing on.
I got one more question.
Yeah, but hang on. One more thing on deadlines. And, you know, I've been criticized for putting out deadlines and missing them. I'm going to say this about deadlines. I'm still going to continue to put deadlines, whether we make them or not. And the reason is that, maybe to a lesser extent. The reason is this, is that I find that unless you put a deadline on something, it doesn't get done. Or it doesn't get done as quickly as you want it to. And there may be some negative repercussions if you miss that deadline, but I find that the positives far outweigh any of the negatives. And you always will get the project done faster if you have a deadline. If you miss the deadline and you're past the deadline, then your speed doubles. So, anyway, I just wanted to make that comment.
Let's get that last question.
Last question, please.
Yeah, you've signed several new clients, partners over the last few months. How long from the time that you sign them do they get integrated and you start realizing revenues from them? And if so, will we see additional revenues from these partners in the third quarter financials?
Okay, that's a good question. It really varies. On a web services integration, as I mentioned earlier, it can be done in a matter of a couple of weeks. Part of the, we're really structured now to handle large accounts. And those are the kind of accounts that we're going after. So larger accounts will typically have a longer sales cycle and a longer integration cycle. I want to say it's typically 3 to 4 weeks for a larger account by the time they sign, by the time they get live and integrated. But that can be delayed with their bank. And the biggest obstacle right now that we're up against, to be perfectly honest with you, has been banks. And, you know, as I mentioned, things are changing dramatically on the banking side in a lot of ways, and probably more ways than I can get into now at the end of the meeting. But they're changing for the positive. And it's not that there's issues necessarily integrating with the banks, it's just getting the banks to follow our timeline. They're not as anxious to move as we are. So we're, you know, it's not that they, it's like, sometimes it takes 2 weeks to get a return phone call from somebody at a bank. So you'll call out, you'll leave 3 messages, and then 2 weeks later you'll call back. So it's like that. So it's frustrating in that respect because you don't really have the responsiveness from banks. Banks and government are very similar in that respect. They just...
And your answer on the question, a lot of the bigger deals were signed late in, you know, third quarter ended September 30th. So obviously a lot of the bigger deals got signed in the month of September, and so you probably won't see the revenue until.
We're anticipating bragging revenue in 2015. So 2014, we're putting the deals together. Yeah, we've got revenue to keep us going, and we've got money in the bank. So that's all we need right now. you know, it's more important right now to make the deals and get the technical integrations done. The revenue will come. You know, we're making the right deals, we're building the right products, and we're doing the integrations. So everything's coming together really well. And you know, I think 2015 is going to be huge for revenue for us. Really big. So that's about a wrap on it. Okay, so we're out of time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Anybody that wants to view an MJ